this is Sabina at Cross Keys Crafts. Today with my first video following yesterday's packaging video. I showed you yesterday which packaging I have saved from my Christmas presents, and one of them was this little little box that came with a mint lip balm. And I think this is actually the biggest challenge I set myself. There was not a lot to salvage on this because it's got loads of folds and cut out bits. And but I saved these 3 bits, which is the owl and some flowers there. And there is a tiny little robin with 2 flowers, almost too small to see. And then there's this little other owl with some flowers at the bottom. And there was another owl, same as this one, but it actually has got a cut through the face. I'm not using this, but I used this to try something. First of all, I just opened the box, and although a bit of the cardboard came off, I could still have used this. It doesn't really matter, but I decided not to. But I kept this as a trial piece because the folds, although I put it through the die cutting machine, and I actually also used my bone folder to flatten them out, they're still quite visible. And I had a trial putting it through the die cutting machine in an embossing folder with a bit of texture, but the only one I have that just gives a little bit of texture is this one. And I thought that would take away from the folds that actually come down, you know, the score lines. But I'm not super happy with the result. But so it's worth on a piece of scrap that you're not going to use to give it a trial run. So I decided not to do that and just keep them as they are. As that, I flattened them out with my bone folder, and you can still see the score lines. But I think once it's all put down, it won't really show too much anymore. The other thing I have done on this piece, and I'm going to show you the difference, is I have painted the edges with my alcohol mark. I just used a really dark brown to go with the background, because once you stick these down, it does make a difference. I don't know if you can see it here. So when you look from the side, it looks a bit more coherent. So I'm going to do that with the other 2 pieces. And then my idea is to use these as ephemera on a card. I'm not quite sure how to arrange them. I will find some cardstock, something that goes with the colours of these flowers, because I think that's important in order to tie ephemera in. You need to have something that matches them. I'm even contemplating having like either a window, like a shaker card, or something round in the middle that I can arrange these round. I might even decide I'm not having this one. It all depends on how I'm going to arrange these. But I'll come back once I have decided and I've got the bits, and I'll show you how I assemble the card and what my thoughts are in arranging these bits. So I'll see you again soon. I just wanted to show you quickly, when you go round a pen with these, always do it from the back, because if you do it from the front, you might actually draw onto your piece. So just go round like this. Don't use the tip, just use the side of the pen and just go round like this. And then you will have it very neatly. And if you do slip with a pen, it'll only end up on the back. Make sure you go into all the bits here. And even if you got a few bits where you haven't cut properly, it will hide actually a few sins. By the way, I always use my small nail files, my rounded nail files, to cut in these corners, because I find it so much easier to actually create curves. So this is how you do the edges. And I don't know if I mentioned that before I forget. I put these through the die cutting machine just to flatten them out a bit, and I just put them between a piece of paper, just folded that over, put these in through, which made a bit of a difference. Not too much though, because you can still see the score lines, but as I said before, it doesn't really matter. Okay, I decided to go for a 6x4 card because the motifs are really small, so I wouldn't go for anything bigger than that, because then they get lost on the card. And I decided to pick up 2 colours, which is the black, although it might actually be a dark brown, from the background here into my card base, And then the pink, I went with a bright pink. It looks a bit reddish on the camera, but it is actually very similar to the bright pink here. It's a shiny cardstock. This is actually from a paper folder, you know, the one that you can put documents in. And I kept this because it's really, really shiny. And as I said before, I was thinking about arranging my motifs around a circle. And then I remembered I have got this sentiment die, the happy birthday die. So I thought this would work really nicely to arrange these around this one. As I said, I'll probably drop this one with a little robin and the flowers. But to tie the background in, I didn't want it plain. I decided I wanted to use an embossing folder after all, and I wanted something flowery. But I don't really have anything flowery. The closest I have is this one, which has got some sort of whirly bits. But I do have loads of stencils, and maybe you're like me and you didn't know this. Oh, I just creased it in my die cutting machine. You can actually use stencils to emboss, dry emboss something. All you need to do is put in like a rubber mat, and this is just a kitchen mat that I cut apart. Just put this in with the cardstock. So I sandwiched, let me just think which way around I did it. I think I put the cardstock like this and then this on top, but you can also use the rubber mat on top. I think it doesn't really matter. Sorry, I just need to cough. Yeah, I'm still not 100% with my cold, so sorry, apologies for the croaky voice now. So that's that. All you need to do is just put it through with that as a cushion, and that will leave an imprint on your cardstock. But don't do what I did. I must have squashed it on the side, so I'll probably just cut this down a bit so it won't affect my stencil work. So yeah, so that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to die cut this now, and I'm going to arrange that on the card and see how it looks, and then I'll show you the finished card. Okay, I want to talk you through my thought process. I stopped the filming and I stopped crafting for a bit, and I've just come back to this, and I cut these bits and I arranged these, and it looked actually quite boring. So I had to think about what I could do, either put it there or there, but what I could do to make this more interesting, because it looks okay, but it still was lacking something. So I thought about my options. One option would have been to put some shine or something to the dry embossed background, and that could be some mica powder that you can apply with some embossing ink, or I could, if I had it, mica spray powders, mica sprays, but I don't have any of those. I've never made my own, but you can obviously do that yourself. Or I've got this Simon Hurley golden paste, forgot now what it's called, or I've got the metallic gilding polishes, so I could do something with that. But I thought I don't really want anything shiny to go with these, so I thought about introducing another colour. And this is when I came up with this, because I thought, which other colour do I have here that would bring some interest to the card? So I decided to go for this bold orange. I did look at other oranges and which ones would work well. I actually quite like this one, but if I just show you this, I hope it comes through on the camera. This would be a bit too cartoony, if you know what I mean. It's very, very bold, and it would work well with other sort of themes, like a pop art theme, even like a makeup theme. But with the sort of natural ephemera, I thought this would be way too bold. And then I've got this really, really subtle colour. This is an orange, almost like a brownish colour, like an ochre. But then that wouldn't work with the pink too well, although the pink on the camera looks really red. So I went for this sort of mid-tone, which is really nice, and it does reappear in the flowers here, and I think that really goes well. And it pops on the card, it brings some interest to the card without being too overpowering. And I just used my, it's like a scalloped edge die, I just used that. So all I need to do now is to glue this down to decide where I'm going to put the ephemera on. I'll probably put it on some foam tape as well, said I was thinking about maybe having this bird on the top. So when you've got die cuts, just play around a bit with them and see where you ideally would like them. It's really a matter of preference. There is, some people say there are rules. You have to have it based on one point, or you have to have it sort of, how can I put it, like a balance thing. But it really is your preference in the end. So you decide what you want to do. I might even have these two at the bottom because it looks a bit like this owl is looking down. So it could be looking at this little fella. And I think that would just finish it off very nicely. So I'm just quickly going to glue these down and then I'll show you the finished card. So here's my finished card. As I said, I glued these bits down flat. I used, by the way, to glue down the sentiment, I used my Zig two-way glue because I find that's the easiest, that's the less messiest, and sorry, the least messy, and it's very easy to get the onto the small bits. But for the back bit, I just used my collal glue because I have different heights on the dry embossed background and I was worried this not grabbing enough. So even round these bits, I went, because it's a fine tip, I'd use a fine tip glue bottle for my collal glue. So I went really very lightly around these bits and just stuck them all down. And then these other motifs are the ephemera. I stuck down on foam tape. I don't know if you can see it there. Just one layer. I always make sure I use the same brand throughout one card because I may have different heights. I mostly use this sellotape brand. I really like this one. It's easy to cut. And I made sure that it's behind all the pieces, especially where the score lines were. And I made sure the score lines are either going vertical or horizontal. I did not tilt these motifs because I didn't want that to be too obvious. Yeah, and I'm quite pleased on how this turned out. And these leftovers, they definitely now go in the paper recycling. I'm not keeping scraps like that. I've made one card and I'm really pleased I could save these two little fellas. And I think it turned out quite nicely. So yeah, if you like this card too, you might want to give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos on how I use the packaging that I saved from my Christmas presents, you might want to subscribe to my channel and see what else I come up with. See you soon.